I've been hearing a lot that it has become very difficult for companies in Germany, but also in other places, to find good field sales experts. So today I'm here with Luca, and I want to ask Luca, who's constantly out there, constantly looking also for sales people, field sales experts, if he agrees that it has become more difficult than in the past, or if it is difficult at all. Hi, this is Laura, and you're listening to the CareerBee Talks podcast, where we share all the newest insights on the recruiting world from both sides, the candidate perspective and the company perspective. Let's jump right in. So, Luca, the stage is yours.
Yeah, so you're asking me whether I find it difficult? I would say, no, for the average recruiter, it's true. A lot of times I hear this as well. I see it even if we sometimes collaborate with others that recruiting field set roles is a different animal, so to say. It's rather difficult. That is true. I think personally, I've really taken on the challenge the last years and feel comfortable saying that I'm quite advanced in field sales and recruiting. I have a big network by now, but even also searching for new candidates comes easy to me. And now after a few years, I've learned what to look for. So happy to share more what exactly that is. If some of you out there are also currently recruiting them, and maybe sharing a few tips.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great. I feel that what I've heard, but then you can, of course, tell me what your perspective is on it, is that many times, like you post a job or, go on LinkedIn and you do find people that have the right profile, so to say, but then during the interview, somehow you realize they actually don't meet the requirements or want more money. So the conversation is kind of difficult. People are willing to change the job, but then it's difficult to identify the right one. I don't know how you go about this, if you've found this as well, or where do you find, even like, where do you start searching for the right people?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. So that's definitely a challenge, but a lot of times the companies don't even get to that point, and I agree. Let's say I would post a job, let's say on a LinkedIn for now for say German field sales manager or field sales representative, doesn't matter. Uh, Probably I would not get like even one single application that would fit, even if I spend money on the job posting and then leave it open for 1 or 2 weeks. So it's really difficult to try to recruit them. We are job ad posting, at least on like more general platforms like LinkedIn, for example. So I think first have to define before we get to the sense, oh, I have them in a conversation, is how do you even get them to our conversation? Because there's definitely field sales people out there and good ones. However, they are kind of like hiding a little bit, I feel
Mm.
like, and usually not the type of person who will go around sending a lot of applications. Why? Because they don't work from the laptop. And this is a lot of time what we
Mm.
forget in the first step, a good field salesperson. They are working on site from the customer. They're driving around, they're sitting in their car, and they are on the phone. That's what they are doing, right? If you look at
Right.
what's the daily job like, they stand up in the morning at 7, 8 a.m., then they drive out, visit the first customer at 9, 10, 11, maybe make some calls, some other customer call them, complain about something. Then they're driving around at 12, they're getting their lunch break, maybe a little bit later in some other countries than Germany. And then in the afternoon, off to some other customers, and then in the home, either if they are too far away, they sleep in the hotel, or maybe they drive back home in the day. So they're usually not on the laptop. That
Right.
means they will not have their CV ready while you're talking to them. Like imagine compare it to a software developer where they are in front of their laptop all day, right? And for them, it's like maybe 2 clicks. Yeah, can you send me a CV? Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Right.
If you ask a field sales representative at the first step to provide their CV, most of the time they're not going to have it ready, and by the next day they already forgot. They already have a few other customer meetings in
Right.
mind and stuff like that. So really have to analyze this candidate persona first, I think.
I think that's such a great point. And just because, like, analyzing the candidate persona, of course, now you mentioned something very like obvious when you think about it, not obvious when you don't think about it, which is of course the fact they're not always on the laptop. which means they cannot send the CV as fast. On the other hand, also they might not be seeing the job ads when they're posted. But you also mentioned specifically, for example, posting on LinkedIn, if that works or not, and you, let's say, gave that an example where it didn't work. Is there also something in regards to platforms? Like, I know they are not much on their phone. They will probably use platforms that are very mobile friendly as well. But do you have any tips when it comes to finding the right job board as well?
Yeah, it's a good point. So mobile definitely important. Maybe they have something on the phone then. Also, please don't expect like a very good formatted CV. Most of the time will be pretty straightforward, and a lot of times they don't even give description what they're doing. Like, hey, everyone knows what it means, field sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I always have to tell them, hey, can you please tell me a little bit more? What are you doing exactly? In terms of the platform, yeah, for some reason, for the German candidates especially. LinkedIn doesn't work at all. Indeed, it's a little bit better here. And then there's some, and this is what I would recommend for sales overall, but for field sales especially, there are some more specific job platforms that only for this. So some sales specific, and then based on our experience, right? Our experience in last years with these field sales, we have developed a platform that is specific for field sales in Germany,
Yeah.
which is called Meinaußendienstjob.de. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a very beautiful designed, very simple to use job board where field sales representatives can apply just a few steps to relevant jobs, because that's one complaint that they always have is they see a lot of jobs that are actually irrelevant for them. And I talked about this a little bit later, maybe how they are really selecting what is worth their time, right? The sales representatives always needs to hunt for what brings the most value in the least amount of time. And so they don't want to go through 100 jobs and realize nothing of that fits really. They want to know, okay, I go to this website and this is where I can apply.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So we have now two lessons learned already. Like, on the first hand, think about the target group, understand they're not constantly on, the computer, meaning the applications won't come in as fast. But secondly, also think about the right platform you choose to post those jobs, in the sense of it is a target group that wants to be efficient. LinkedIn has 1 million benefits, but of course, if you've tried to find jobs on LinkedIn, you realize it's not that easy to find the right jobs, even if you type in the right keywords, versus other platforms that are more specialized. Like, for example, the one we're also going to link in the show notes, like our meinaußendienstjob.de, but also others, right? That are more specialized, or Indeed, that helps them identify the right jobs. Okay, I think we have now two very good lessons of how to, let's say, understand the target group better and manage our expectations when it comes to applications. What would be then the next step as well to get the right person?
So let's say we found the right channel. Maybe we have either, but I would also recommend not just relying on getting the applicants even on this job board, but also reaching out to them. A lot of them have a LinkedIn profile, for example, or on some other platforms, because it makes sense. The salesperson should have a good online representation nowadays when they're making sales. The customer wants to know who am I talking to, right? So they do have that. And if you reach out to them, then be rather specific about what you have to offer. Also, I would recommend talking about salary and other stuffs at the very beginning. And then once you, let's say, have someone who is interested, I think worst you can do is, here's a link to my calendar. Please book a video call whenever you like. That's probably not going to work. And the best thing you can usually do is, hey, that's great. When are you in the car driving to the next customer? Can you give me your phone number? I'll give you a call. And I can tell you this will have like a 90% response rate positive. If you send them a link to book a video call, to the licenses will probably do a 25% response rate, because it does not fit their daily schedule. If they block half an hour for a video call, they need to drive to the roadside. Next, they lose half an hour of a day, maybe during lunch break, but usually they're just sitting in their car eating a quick lunch or going to the next gas station or whatever. But if you can call them, make an old school phone call that they can take on loudspeaker while they are driving, which is legally allowed, suddenly you have a go and say, call me at 3 p.m.
Right.
Might happen you call it 3 p.m. and you get a busy sign back, because there's some customer call environment like, okay, please just try again 5 minutes later. Usually they will pick up. Or what I also like to check, a good salesperson, they usually call you back.
Yeah,
And
right. It's a
right,
test
when
already.
someone when someone calls them, they are required to call back usually when it's a potential customer. So the recruiting process again is a little bit different. If I would compare it again to a software engineer, software developer, this would be their horror that I ask for their personal phone number and then call them on a personal phone number. They would not like it at all. But we feel that it's better to call them on the phone.
Right. Have you also had experience with them being open to use WhatsApp or other methods, or is it still
Oh
like
yeah, they
because,
love
yeah,
using. No, they love using WhatsApp.
yeah,
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I just give you a quick message. Yeah, can I call you? Yeah, no, yeah. So,
right.
yeah, very big WhatsApp users, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think the third lesson for everyone here is really be proactive. Like the recruiting process will be more intense than for other roles in the sense of you have to run after these candidates. But of course, if they have the right profile, then they won't be waiting for your job. You have to, make time and space so that you really catch their attention. I think that is a great lesson. So let's say you really had this call with somebody that sounds like interesting. And now coming a little bit to this problematic that of course they are good at selling things and of course also selling themselves. How as a company would you identify that it is actually the right person for the job?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I think it's in multiple stages. So first of all, if they cannot talk to me, right, even if this bare minimum requirement, you would be surprised. I sometimes I joke just with candidates if I have a good candidate, and they're like, I say, yeah, this was a good call. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm a salesperson. And I'm like, yeah, you would be surprised how many bad calls I have with salespeople. Like, okay, you can seem to not be able to hold a conversation even with me. I'm not sure how you're dealing with customers. So that's kind of like a red flag. Okay, so you sort
Yeah.
them out rather quickly. For salespeople, especially, I think looking at the career switches, either changing jobs like every 6 to 12 months,
Mhm.
companies are usually, or let's say, bad performance is easier detected than in other roles, right? Let's say you are
Right.
working in more like a office-based job, you can hide a little bit. Your performance is not as visible as salesperson. You can see it in numbers after 1 year later. So if someone changes jobs like every 1 year, like okay, maybe that's a good talker. He seems to be good at getting new jobs, but actually not being good at keeping jobs.
Right.
So that's one thing. Maybe also it depends on which industry we're talking. In tech sales, you have a very clear promotion path. So usually it starts with a sales development representative, the SDR, then a senior SDR, and then the next step is so-called account executive. And if someone has this promotion cycle within one company over 2 to 3 years, that's usually a good track record. And also trying to quantify as much. So how much revenue are you responsible right now? How much product did you bring in? How many new customers did you bring in? What type of new customers did you? Don't just say any numbers like, okay, can you tell me some of the customers you club? How did you find them? How did you reach out to them?
Mm.
That's usually the best way. But yeah, you're right. They're good at talking.
But I think here you already gave some very interesting tips that, are obvious again when you say them, but I think when you're in the process or don't think too much about it, you wouldn't come up with these things immediately. So I think this is great insights to help you identify the right candidate as a company. And then now we maybe come to the more final stages, which are also part of the whole process, which are of course the salary negotiations. And I think this is also something where companies feel like it is difficult because, of course, sometimes they receive many offers, at least in the current market where there's a lot of people searching for the right person. What about salaries in general? Anything to consider as a company here, also when making the pitch, for example?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, the overall level of the compensation and the salary depends on which industry you're in. So it varies quite broadly and based on experience and industry. So I don't want to go into
Yeah.
that. It's maybe a topic for a different discussion. But the structure is maybe important. And this is where sometimes companies go a little bit wrong. So most usual is that you have a base salary, fixed salary, and then on top you have some what we call provisions, bonus scheme. There's
Mhm.
different splits. Some jobs don't pay any fixed salary, 100% commission. That's quite extreme. You do have, on the other hand, you do have some sales jobs that are purely base salary and no commissions on top, also rather rare. Most of them are somewhere in the middle where you have a base salary plus some part 30%, 40%, 50%, sometimes up to 50%, especially with American
Right.
companies. Part of your compensation is to be earned via provisions to motivate the sales, right? And getting the split right and also defining with them together, okay, this is your base salary, this is the provision, and this is how we calculate this. That's actually also quite important. And that's something that salespeople in the offer process or in the interview process will really focus on. Is the base salary part very high, but then probably overall compensation is lower? Or is it more like 60-40 split, maybe even 50-50? But then it gets really important. How do you define the provisions? Is there a cap? That's what I usually don't like. If they said, yeah, you earn 10% of the revenue, which I think is very smart, make it a percentage of the revenue that they bring in. In most scenarios, that actually works quite well. You get a percentage of the revenue, but only until this and this threshold is reached. Afterwards, this is your maximum bonus. That doesn't make any sense. So you want to motivate them, and then towards the end of the year, they've reached their cap, and then for the last 2 months, they're not doing anything until the new year. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. But there are quite a few companies who've been doing this. So I'm usually a friend of having X% of your revenue that just goes to the salesperson. Depends on your industry and the deal size. Some make 1%, 5%, 10%, 20%, even sometimes depends what you're selling. But then without a cap, so just the more you sell, the more you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds very logical now talking about it. But of course, I think for many companies in the process of defining salaries or thinking about how to make a pitch, I think this is a great point to consider when, being at that stage. So I think we've discussed and covered many aspects. And Luca, because you have hired so many field sales experts overall, and I think you've already shared many tips, but maybe towards the end, is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you think like this is also important to consider when finding field sales people?
I think we talked about most of it. So don't forget to check out our own job website, meinaußendienst.de, if you're listening to this. Other than this, I think no, maybe just, of course, every industry is different, right? I don't want to sound like, oh, I have the perfect answer for everything. And these are just some general observations. Of recently, I had a discussion where we talked about 10% of the revenue. And then the managing director said, well, we have very big products or expensive products, that cost like 40,000. And then we have rather small one where one part costs 20 euros. If I give you 10% of everything, which one are you more interested in selling? So of course, maybe sometimes I need to adapt a little bit to your model for this. But other than this, I think I shared most of what's on my mind.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all these insights. And for everyone, we're going to leave the link to this job board if you just want to post your job in there to find field sales experts. Or alternatively, you can also reach out directly to us via our email, team@careerbeat.io. And we're also happy to look at your specific situation and see how we can support you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you are a company who's currently looking to expand their team with amazing talent, make sure to check out our website, careerbeat.io, to learn more about our recruiting services and how we can help you find the best candidate for your open roles. On the other side, if you are a candidate who's currently looking to find a job in the US or Germany, make sure to explore our website, careerbeat.io/talents, to see how our masterclass and our additional career services can get you to find your dream job. In any case, you can always reach out to our team via the email team@careerbeat.io. We are so happy to continue sharing many more insights around recruiting and job searching.